And you about to get a bag. No. You about to get a bag. We about to get a bag. We about to get a bag. We all want to get a bag.
They did. They got a bag. They got a huge, fat bag of money. Congratulations to Jordan Poole. Congratulations to Andrew Wiggins. We're going to break down those contract extensions. The most expensive PR campaign in NBA history was just conducted. We'll break that down next. In all seriousness, though, congratulations to two players who I think earned those deals. I'll get Kylen Mills' thoughts on that and so much more. Tip-off is less than 24 hours away, or maybe it's a little over 24 hours away. It's a day away. Yeah, this is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts. You can follow Kylen Mills on Twitter at Kylen Mills. You can follow me, Cyrus Saatsaz, on Twitter at DogSurfRoadshow. Kylen, I know you had a busy weekend, but it was also a busy weekend for the Golden State Warriors. Rather surprising news coming out. Jordan Poole gets a contract extension. Andrew Wiggins gets a contract extension. And press conferences accompanied that news. Your first reaction to the two players getting the big bag? Yep.
Slow clap for the Warriors front office, because I mean, what they did was really excellent work. First, they've made a statement in that they clearly want to invest in the future of this organization and in the youth, in doing whatever it took to keep Jordan Poole around, first of all, by giving him that massive extension. And then I know we talk about them getting a bag, and of course it is a lot of money, but Andrew Wiggins ultimately took a pay cut to stay with the Golden State Warriors. He's slated to earn $33 million in the final year of his current contract. He's going to be making $24 million in the 2023-2024 season. So that just goes to show what great negotiators the Warriors are, what great culture this organization has built, and the fact that players want to play here and they're willing to maybe take a pay cut in order to be on a championship team and in order to be a part of something that's really special. So hats off to the Warriors front office in pulling this off and getting both those players signed. I think it leaves a lot of questions about Draymond Green's future with the organization, but the fact that they were willing to invest in Jordan Poole and invest in Andrew Wiggins shows where the direction it is heading. This organization is heading. And I also think it does, though, leave questions down the line as to how much longer this core is going to be going.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, I mean, the core is going to be together except for Dre, right? I mean, I think that's the one huge question mark. Friday's game we talked about it before the show, whether or not the reception would be positive, negative, how it would go. And the fans generally were warm. It was a slightly abnormal experience in the sense that Draymond Green, when he took his warm-up shots, he usually comes out earlier with his teammates. Yeah. This time he came out late and he was alone. And then when you looked at the bench, he was at the end of the bench. I was asking some other media folks there, is that normal? Because I couldn't remember. Most of them said no. I've had some people on Twitter say he does sit there, but he's not alone like that. He was on an island for a lot of the game. But then later in the game, you saw him and Jordan Poole kind of sitting next to each other. I mean, all indications are, and we'll get into this more in just a moment here, but all indications are that the team's moving on. The fans seem like they moved on. Your thoughts? I mean, do you feel like that's what's going to happen here? We're just going to is it time to move on? Are you going to begrudge Draymond a little bit throughout the season? Do you think other people will? What's your reaction to Friday's game and tip-off, which is tomorrow? It's crazy.
Jordan Poole has no reason not to be happy based on the bag that he just secured. So I think he's just on cloud nine right now because the man is getting paid like he deserves. He has come out on top of the mountain after what he went through early in his career, which is something I was reading about that does put in context what this means for Jordan Poole, because you can't forget that in 2020, people around the NBA, fans were saying that Jordan Poole was the biggest bust in one of the last 5 years. I mean, people were pointing to him and saying that he was a total bust, bad pick by the Warriors. And now, look at where he is. Now he just got that massive extension. He had, a really strong campaign last year. I think he's poised for an even bigger breakout year this season.
Yeah.
So, he's on cloud 9, as he should be. So I think that that also has helped soften the blow of the Draymond situation, right? I mean, the punch from Draymond should have or could have only helped his negotiation process. So, for Jordan Poole, yes, the video and the whole thing surrounding the Warriors team was unfortunate, but for him, I mean, it seems like he's come out in the best way possible from all of this. And if anything, I said this on Friday, I think it reflects really highly on his character that he was able to deal with it maturely and that he apparently didn't want Draymond Green suspended, according to what the front office and Coach Kerr said. So, hats off to Jordan Poole. As far as moving on from this, I'm not in the locker room. I don't know Jordan Poole. I don't know the relationship. So, I hate to really speculate about exactly what those conversations are like and what those feelings are like. I think obviously he wants to move forward, or he wouldn't have approved or signed off on Draymond Green coming back to the team. And so that's all good. That's all a good sign. As far as fans, I think the fans are fed up with Draymond. I really do. Because this isn't a first offense. It is a first when it comes to punching a teammate, but like Draymond Green has had emotional outbursts before, and he's had incidences before that have caused disruption and ultimately caused harm to the Warriors as a whole. Or have, been detrimental to the team. And so that's part of the reason why I think, and what I'm seeing and reading from the fans, is that people are just fed up. This is not the first time that something just happened out of the blue with Draymond Green. It's like he's done things over and over and over. And I feel like a lot of fans are starting to just kind of shift into where they felt in the past that his outstanding play and ability on the court outweighed some of those emotional incidences, outweighed maybe some of the drawbacks that come with his fiery personality. Because on the positive side, he brings so much fire to the floor, but that can also be a liability at the same time. So I feel like in the past, people felt like, well, the positive outweighs the negative and the potential liability of his real, just the fact that he could be a short fuse. Now I feel like it's kind of shifted to where people feel like, he's getting older. Last season, he's not putting up the numbers he necessarily was in years past. And now to do something this egregious, it's no longer, the play is no longer outweighing, the risk or the drawbacks or, some of these incidences that I think people have overlooked in the past or been willing to overlook and move on from in the past. And I'm not saying necessarily it's how I feel, but I feel like that's just the general feeling amongst a lot of Warriors fans based on what I'm seeing of reactions, people I've talked to and things like that. So I think a lot of fans are fed up. And as far as because you mentioned, are you going to begrudge Draymond Green moving forward? I think there are definitely some fans that are kind of sick of him. And I'm still seeing people say, get rid of him. Whether it be sooner or later, when his contract's up. I don't think that there's a lot of fans that necessarily want him to be re-signed. Or extended. So we'll just have to see how that plays out. As for me, I think the team clearly seems like they want to move on. If they want to win the season, they've got to move on. I'm just kind of questioning, when is something going to happen again? From his press conference the other day, I still just don't necessarily strongly feel that Draymond Green has learned his lesson or whatever else. It's like, yeah, we'll move on and we'll see. Is something going to happen again this season? And I think a lot of people are kind of feeling that way, and that, all is well for now. And I'll take that. And I think that this team is in a much better place than it was a week ago. That's positive. I'm ready to look forward to the season and to watch the magic the Warriors make on the court. But I don't know. I just have reservations about Draymond Green that something isn't going to happen again, or there's not going to be some kind of incident. Maybe it's not a punch, but I just don't know that he's fully learned necessarily. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, we'll find out. I mean, in a lot of ways, this is a blessing. And what I mean by that is, look, Draymond Green, he is no longer earning the benefit of the doubt if he behaves in a way that goes against rules or in a way where he hurts someone else. Like he's definitely on thin ice. There's no doubt about that. It maybe perhaps pushed negotiations with Jordan Poole ahead faster. It gave Poole some leverage. And now Poole is locked in, and so is Wiggins. I don't know if the Wiggins thing had anything to do with Draymond Green. One interesting note, so the NBA's changed up their policy in terms of media going into locker rooms. It's been a few years since the locker rooms were open, but they've revised their policy. Yeah, exactly, because of the pandemic. But so now they're open again, but they've also implemented this new system. It's a tier system where the only media members who can go into the locker room are part of what's called Tier 1. And it's a really limited number. So unlike years past, where I was just rolling into locker rooms all the time, I actually, because I'm not a beat reporter, they're limiting it mostly to media members that are there like every day. And again, there's a finite number of them, so I can't go in there anymore. So when it comes to what's going on in the locker room, I have to ask, our friends in the media. And what I heard is that Draymond and Poole have not been seen together in the locker room. If you usually you'll see one or the other. What's not known is if that's intentional, or maybe it is intentional, but not for the reasons you would think, where maybe they are getting along, but they just don't want other media members like turning into like TMZ body language doctors, right? Where they're like analyzing every little thing they do and reporting on it. But so far, they have not been seen together in the locker room. It's either been one or the other or neither. So take that for what it's worth. There's a lot more to talk about the Warriors. I mean, again, tip-off is tomorrow. They had a practice today. Steve Kerr had some comments about that pertaining to their conditioning, which you and I both found interesting. And I also want to play sound from Jordan Poole from, was that yesterday, the press conference? It was, where Poole basically came out, quickly addressed the Draymond thing, and just moved on. Like there was no time spent on that. We'll explain perhaps why and get into that in just a moment. First, got to give some love to a company that was formerly called Truebill. Now they're called RocketMoney. And the premise is still the same, saving you money. And more specifically, it's all about subscriptions, right? Like a lot of times people forget what they're subscribed to. You might have Amazon subscriptions. You might have 3-4 different streaming services you're subscribed to that you just completely forget about. Well, Rocket Money is there to let you know what you're subscribing to and potentially cancel them so you can save money. I saved over $1,000 in a year thanks to Rocket Money, and you can too. Not for that amount. It depends on what your subscriptions are, but you can also save money. Cancel unnecessary subscriptions with Rocket Money today. Go to rocketmoney.com/locked-on. Seriously, it could save you hundreds, or in my case, over $1,000 a year. That's rocketmoney.com/locked-on.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. Make your second listen Locked On NBA. The NBA season's here. Our local NBA experts and insiders have you covered on and off the court all season long. All the biggest stories around the NBA every Monday through Friday in less than 30 seconds. Available on YouTube, Odyssey, and wherever you get your podcasts. Also want to mention, Kylen, after we're done recording, I'm going to record a special, what I hope will be an annual affair. It's called NBA 1 through 5. It's an NBA preview show. I'm bringing on Jackson Gadlin of Locked On Rockets, Wes Goldberg of Locked On Heat, and myself. And the show will be available here in 2 parts, covering the Eastern and Western conferences. Going to be predicting who goes 1 through 5 in each division. So stay tuned for that. That should be available soon. Jordan Poole, this is what he said in the press conference when he came out for his contract extension. Look, Jordan Poole, before I play this, he's not a big media guy. What I mean by that is he's never been keen on talking to reporters. He's never been keen on the attention that comes with media. He doesn't have a Twitter account, just to put it in perspective. He's on Instagram, but he doesn't have Twitter. So his media presence it's different. He's not that into it. So when people were wondering why hasn't he come out and talked to the media about the Draymond Green punch, who knows what the reasons were. He didn't get into that, but it is worth noting that he just does not normally talk to reporters. He almost has to, when he does it. So when he addressed the media yesterday on Sunday, he started off the press conference by letting people know about the Draymond Green incident.
The Draymond situation, he apologized and professional. We plan on handling ourselves that way. We're here to play basketball, and everybody in the locker room and on our team knows what it takes to win a championship. And we're going to do that on the court. And I mean, that's really all I have to say, on the matter. We're here to win a championship and, keep hanging banners, especially the Draymond situation.
So that's basically what he said. It was a nothing burger of a response. Who knows if the incident really bothered him? Again, you have a lot of athletes, and even athletes. Some of them say it's normal. Some of them say they've never seen it. Kevin Durant, interestingly, came out and said, "I've never seen anything like that in terms of the punch." I don't know if that's a slight dig to Draymond in the process. Your thoughts on Jordan Poole and the way he handled that press conference yesterday?
I mean, as far as Jordan Poole expanding it all on it, I don't think he owes anyone an explanation. Like,
Right.
if anything, he's been the victim in all of this. And, whatever goes on in the locker room or between him and Draymond, if he wants to keep it private, he has every right to keep it private, in my opinion. Like, this is a tough subject, I'd have to imagine, for him to talk about. So, I have to respect what he's willing to reveal or not reveal. Also, though, to add to the context of him being short with the media, you're absolutely right. Having covered the team, being at every practice the last 2 years, or the last 2 seasons, now my third, he is never one who's just going to be real vocal. A lot of times he's kind of a 1 or 2 word answer guy. He'll crack some jokes. I mean, he'll always at the end, all right, am I good? Am I done? Can I go?
Yeah.
And he's like, not to say he's not pleasant to be around. Like I said, he'll crack a joke here and there, but he's never one to just like openly expand on a situation or just to be real chatty, overly talkative. I mean, I think he does it, like you said, out of obligation. He understands the position he's in, that he has to, be willing to answer questions before, after games or practices. But, I don't think he's one that, like you said, is really just relishing the limelight and dying to go out there and talk to all these media members. So to me, it wasn't a big surprise because that's kind of just the way he carries himself. And then to me, he doesn't owe anyone an explanation or, to expand on his feelings and all of this. I'd have to imagine it's hard for him to talk about. And honestly, who knows what kind of place him and Draymond truly are in. I mean, you mentioned them not necessarily being close to each other in the locker room or spending time around each other. I don't know. Even if they're ready to move on and he's being a professional, I have to imagine there's some awkwardness or tension still. Like, that's not going to dissolve immediately. I don't think it necessarily has to affect their play, but like, as far as like being buddy, in the locker room and off the floor, like that may take some time. Like, I can't imagine they'd already be back there. And so, I don't think he owes anyone an explanation about where they're at or needs to say anything in particular. It didn't surprise me. I don't think it's like alarming that he was short or anything. I don't know if that's what any of the reactions were. But he's a professional, and hopefully the team as a whole can move on and look forward to tomorrow night.
Absolutely. I cannot believe the NBA starts in just a day. Charles Barkley and the crew and the TNT crew, Ernie Johnson, Kenny Smith, Shaquille O'Neal, they just re-upped. They got a huge contract extension. I believe it's like for 10 years. Interesting side note, there's a stipulation where if TNT does not re-sign with the NBA to continue covering a league that they've been covering for decades, those individuals are allowed to get out of the deal and potentially go to whatever network does add them. And the reason why I bring that up, besides the fact that it's cool that we get to see these folks, they're covering opening night for the Warriors, again, inside the NBA on TNT is covering it. But what a lot of people aren't mentioning that I think is important when it comes to the discussion of the Warriors salary cap, because again, I mean, if Draymond Green opts in next year, the Warriors could be looking at over $500 million in payroll expenses between the actual payroll and the luxury tax penalties. But for some reason, I don't hear a lot of people talking about the fact that the collective bargaining agreement expires after this year. I had Keith Smith on this show. He's a cap expert with Spot Track. Had him on a couple months ago. He's connected with the NBA. He's been covering the league for a long time. And he strongly feels, and I've heard this from other insiders as well, that when the new CBA is revised, when they have the new contract, one of the revisions is going to be no longer penalizing teams for their draft picks. It's an interesting point why they didn't do this to begin with. Maybe they just no one envisioned any team drafting as successfully as the Warriors have. But regardless, if they don't make this change, you have a lot of small market teams who are going to be entering the luxury tax in terms of paying penalties if this change is not made. And it really goes against the spirit of the law. I think most people agree that, logically speaking, it makes sense to no longer penalize teams for drafting well. And, so there is a strong possibility that revision will be applied for the next deal. And my hunch is, I think even more so this is going to happen because I don't think Lacob and Gruber are just spending over $500 million on payroll when they let Gary Payton II go. And they said repeatedly that there's only so much they're going to spend each year. So my strong hunch is that the CBA will be revised. Do you have any thoughts on that? And maybe.
So you think the big deal for Jordan Poole and then Wiggins Max being signed is foreshadowing that they expect this to be renegotiated and then that luxury tax on draft picks is going to be lifted? Is that what you're thinking?
Possibly. I think that's what I'm thinking. Yeah. And again, they're probably going to be negotiating this season. They might be negotiating this now. Indications are December, January is when we might start hearing what the new terms of the CBA are. And my hunch is that they're going to stop penalizing draft picks. So the Warriors payroll will be closer to 200, 300 million, even with Draymond coming back and so forth. Your thoughts on that? And I guess I'm curious to know your thoughts on why so many members of the media are not touching the CBA thing. Is it just sexy is it like a media story that they're going to spend over 500 million next year potentially? And that's why people are running with it. Is it lazy journalism? Why do you think people are not talking about the fact that there is going to be a new CBA next year? And the salary cap could go up too. I don't know your thoughts on all that, please.
Because I do think the salary cap would go up, even if the penalty, like you're talking about, removing the penalty for your own draft picks. The salary cap's still going to go up. They also have a new TV deal that's supposed to be negotiated, which also should raise that cap. As far as journalists not touching on that or touching on that, I don't know, aside from just that all remains to be seen, and it's very unknown at this point what that's going to be. So if you're looking at it based on the facts that are in front of you, then yes, the Warriors are going to be well into that. What is the number right now? If it stays as is, that they would be
it's like 550 million approximately, somewhere around there. Yeah,
insanity. I don't know. In regards to like I said, the only thing I can think is just that it all remains to be seen. It's all very fluid. We don't know exactly what the cap is going to be next year. We don't know if the draft pick thing is going to be changed. It's all just very up in the air. I understand looking at the facts as they are right now and what you have in front of you and what that number would be. But it's all good news for the Warriors if any of that changes. So we'll just have to see. I honestly I won't be surprised if Draymond Green isn't on this team after next season, regardless of what the cap is, regardless of what happens with draft picks. I don't know. What if
he opts into his player option, which now seems likely?
That's true. So I think he could. It does seem like it would be smart for him to opt in at this point. I don't know. I think that the writing's on the wall that Draymond Green's days are numbered, and I don't know yet if I could see him being traded, but I don't know. Regardless of what happens, the cap situation, I think something's up. I think something's up. So we'll see.
Yeah, Bob Myers alluded to that and said, you get the best version of Draymond when he's incentivized. It motivates him. Yeah. And look, he has lost so much leverage from this whole incident. If he's going to be punished in any regard, it's the fact that a lot of people in the public don't like him anymore. And B, he might have lost a ton of money. I don't think anyone's giving him a max deal now. I don't know if they would have to begin with, but they're certainly not touching that now. I don't know if the Warriors are going to give him an extension he'd be happy with at this point. And all indications are he's going to opt in to the player option and collect $27+ million next year. We'll find out. But I'm going to play a game with you next. This is tied into our longtime sponsor, BetOnline, because they laid out some over-unders for the upcoming season pertaining to the Golden State Warriors. And I'd love to get to know your thoughts on that. Maybe we can help people win some money. First, got to talk about our longtime sponsor, BetOnline. We're going to lead into that segment with an ad read first. BetOnline.net. They are your number one source for all sorts of betting this season, including football. And obviously the NBA is just around the corner. You can find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game you could find. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sport wagering information, including live betting, which is such a fun new thing in gambling, and up to the minute scores for every sport out there. So head to betonline.net or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. And coming up next, we're going to try to win you some money with some over-unders for the Golden State Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts. All right, so this is the email from Jimmy Vaccaro, the president of BetOnline. These are player props pertaining to the Warriors and the total season. For the YouTube viewers, let me zoom in a little more so you can look at this better. All right, Kylen, I'm going to ask you one by one what your thoughts are on each of these. I'll obviously chime in with my thoughts as well. In terms of points per game, Stephen Curry's OU for this season is 24.5, which indicates that the odds makers think there's going to be a decline in Stephen Curry in terms of points per game. Would you bet the over or under 24.5?
I would go with the over. He was over that last season. Here's the thing. I don't think his average is going to lower. I think he's going to play less games this upcoming season in order to try to, preserve him a little bit and keep him fresh. But I don't think his actual potency in those minutes is going to go down. I believe he was at 25.5 points per game this past season. And you look back to 2019, 2020, he was way over that. And, in the MVP regular season race as well. So I don't think that his points per game is going to be below 24.5. I just think he's going to be resting more. I think he's going to be playing less games, but that shouldn't affect his average. So I'm going to go with the over for Steph Curry.
Oh, and if he's rested, I'm with you. And if he's rested, he's going to score more when it comes to per game averages. And to put it in perspective, last year he averaged 25.5. Yeah. He averaged 32 points per game. That was a career high 2 years ago. We're not going to count the 2020 season just because he only played 5 games, broke his hand. He only averaged 20.8 points per game. But again, that was a 5-game sample. And then going down the list, 27.3, 26.4, 25.3, 30.1. The last time he averaged below 24.5 was in 2015, his first MVP campaign when he averaged 23.8. I'm with you. I'm going to bet the over on that as well. What about assists per game? 6.5 for Steph Curry.
Yeah, so I was looking at that one and thinking, what do you think first? I don't know. I'm debating.
Right.
It's definitely, he was well under that. It's pretty, I was gonna say it's pretty high. He was well under that last season. And I'm trying to remember what he was. I think last season he was around 5, somewhere in the 5 to 6 range assists per game. And I'm trying to think what he was the seasons before that. And I'm kind of surprised that it's that high. I mean, yes, he's going to have a lot of weapons around him. He also will be playing a full season with Klay Thompson, which I think we know they have that connection. He can dish off to Klay. So I'm thinking maybe that could be part of the reason why his assists per game would go up while they expect his points per game to go down, or that's why the odds makers are predicting that. I might go with the under, though. I might go with the under. I think it was at least the last 2 to 3 seasons that he's been under 6.5 assists per game. Yeah, and I don't know. I don't feel strongly that it's going to be over 6.5, like at 6.6 per game. I don't know. So I'm going to go with the under points, under on assists.
Yeah, I don't feel strongly about that one. That 6.5 is incidentally his career average. Last year he averaged 6.3. 2 years ago, 5.8. In 2019 he only averaged 5.2. But then again, in 2014, the last year before the dynasty, he averaged 8.5. His first MVP campaign, he averaged 7.7. So it jumps all over the place. Last year he went under. I'm going to go under, but I'm not going to recommend that one. That's a tough one.
Yeah, I agree. Tough one. I just, and it's like if he got 6.3 last season, it's going to be a very similar style of basketball they're playing and very similar pieces. The Warriors move the ball and they get a lot of assists every single game. But like if that's where he's at last season, like I just don't know that I feel strongly enough that he would really bump that number up that high over 6.5. So I agree. Stay away. Just don't bet on that one.
Stay away from that one. What about 3-point shooting percentage? The over under for that is 41.5. To put it in perspective, last year was an off year for him. And when it comes to outside shooting, he averaged a career low 38% from beyond the arc. 2 years ago was at 42.1. 2019 was 43.7, 42.3, 41.1. And then the two MVP years, he was at 45.4 and 44.3. Would you bet the over or under on 41.5%?
I'm going to go with the over, and I feel pretty strongly and pretty good about this one. I think that last season, Steph Curry's three-point shooting was really affected by when he got so close to that three-point record. Remember how many games he went through just having off bad shooting nights because he was closing in on that three-point record, career three-pointers. And I think that really affected his game for like a solid month. Like, do you remember that? Like, he had so many, like, really, really, and I'm not talking like off, like he was off, like 1 for 9, like just like numbers that you don't see from Steph Curry. And that really should have dropped his percentage down last season, or at least I think it did play a big factor in his percentage being down a couple of points, was because of that stretch he went through right around Christmas and into the new year where he was really struggling. And like I said, I think the record got to him and it got in his head a little bit. So that's why I think he's going to bounce back in three-point percentage and that Steph Curry is going to be well into the 42s.
Yeah, that's it for me. That's a tough one, but if I had to bet, I bet the over as well. This one I feel very confident with, and that's Klay Thompson's points per game. I've been saying all offseason that if the over under was 24, I would bet the over. The over under is 20.5. I strongly think he's going to go above that. And just a couple that just to save time here as well is 3-point shooting percentage, 38.5% is the OU. I'm going to put the over on both of those. Your thoughts?
Yeah, Klay Thompson, I think it's the over for sure. He was already averaging 20 points per game this past season coming off of those back-to-back injuries. So I'm shocked that it's that low. I'm going to go with definitely over for the Klay Thompson. We've talked about it a lot in this program. He's coming in now with a full offseason, being able to prepare, get his body into the best shape he's been in years. He's healthy. He has at least a half a season from last season under his belt now. And he's going into a full season basically healthy. So I am shocked that it would be that low because last season we saw him coming back from 2 injuries and he was averaging 20.4 points per game. I think solid over, and I think that an over on 3-point percentage as well.
Yeah, I think so too. Draymond Green has 4 different OUs to choose from. You could bet on the over under of points per game, which is a meager 7.5. His over under on rebounds per game is a little better at also 7.5. Assists per game at 6.5. Total triple doubles is the one I do like here. The over under is 2.5. I think the over on that would be a safe bet. Your thoughts on any of these? Because I don't want to touch the rest at all, but except for the triple doubles. Your thoughts?
So let's see what. Okay. I agree on the total triple doubles. I think we would go with the over. And we're looking at 6.5 as far as the assists per game. I think I'm going to go with the over on assists per game and the under on rebounds per game. And I believe last season he averaged 7 assists per game. And like I just kind of was mentioning, the way that this Warriors offense has been functioning, the connection that he has now with Klay Thompson back, we know he's constantly dishing to Steph Curry. They've got a really special connection, and just this Warriors offense really moves the ball a lot, and they get a lot of assists every single game. So I think that he's going to be over on the assists. I'm okay with that. And I don't feel really strongly about rebounds per game either, but I would say maybe the under. I don't know, but I think assists per game, I feel good about being over. Going with the over.
And just a few more here to wrap the show up. Andrew Wiggins over under points per game is 17.5. I am not touching that with a 10-foot pole. But what I do like, Jordan Poole's points per game, his over under is 18.5. I think that's going to go over. Your thoughts on either of those two players' points per game?
Andrew Wiggins is a tough one, and I also would agree in not touching that because, like, Andrew Wiggins can explode on big nights, and there's some nights where he's just not as effective. And I don't think it's necessarily him, but it's also a little bit of what each game calls for,
right?
And what the opponent they're playing is. And there's some games where he does need to step up and be really aggressive in the attack. And I think it's always good for him to, be more aggressive in attacking the basket in general. But I think that it just, like, some games call for it more than others. And like this last season, like, he had some big explosive nights where he was into 20 points, and then there were some nights where he was fairly quiet. And this team is so loaded with scorers and outside shooting threats that, like, he just may not be getting the ball as much on offense, just depending on who's hot on any given night. So I don't want to touch the Andrew Wiggins either. I think Jordan Poole's going over.
Yeah, I agree. And then we'll wrap up with this. These are the really young core of Wiseman, Kuminga, and Moody, who, if you're observing preseason basketball closely, these three looked fantastic. Points per game for James Wiseman. BetOnline is saying the over-under is 10.5. I think that's an easy over. Given his rookie year, he averaged nearly 12 per game. Although they had less weapons on that team, so they relied on him more. He's clearly stepped up his game. And then his rebounds per game is 6.5. I'd begrudgingly bet the over on that. I'm not feeling super great about it. Your thoughts on either of those for Wiseman?
For Wiseman, I think the over for sure. And then I also want to mention amongst some of the other youngsters, I feel like Moses Moody, the over is a good pick. He was averaging, I think, 4.5 points per game this past season, but he was only playing on average 11.5 minutes per game. I think that his minutes is going to double. I think Moses Moody is going to be featured in a much bigger role off the bench and in that second unit, whereas we saw him, really much farther down the bench in his rookie year. I think he's going to be moving up a lot, and I think that he's going to be playing a lot more. I think he should easily double his points per game from last season just because he's going to be playing more. And then you can touch on what you said in that he's looked really good during preseason, during summer league. He showed so many great flashes and how much development that we've seen from him. So that's one that I'm surprised it's as low as it is. And I think that it's going to be a good bet to go with the over. As far as Wiseman, points over is what I feel the most strongly about as well.
Yeah, and I'm with you on Kuminga and Moody. Moody is essentially the team's seventh man on the roster, which does mean he's going to play a lot more minutes. I think betting the over on 8.5 points per game should be easy money. Kuminga's a little high at 11.5, but I think he's going to be in that 14-15 range. He's looking damn good. I just cannot be excited enough for this team. As we wrap things up here, I just want to emphasize one more time that I really think this Warriors team is going to repeat. I really do. Hall of Famer Rick Barry is going to join the show tomorrow for the final preview before the season starts, but I'm feeling damn good about this team. I really am. I think they're going to just clean house. Don't judge them for the regular season, just like I've said with years past, just because they don't care about the regular season. This is not what they play for. The regular season is an extended preseason for the Golden State Warriors. But with that said, they have so many young players that are going to be playing heavy minutes. They still might succeed. So point is, I'm stoked. I think right now, if they stay healthy, we're looking at a repeat world championship. Any final thoughts from you, Kylen, as we wrap things up here?
I think there's no reason why the Warriors shouldn't repeat. I think they have all the tools in place. They've done an excellent job of working these dual timelines of utilizing the older core and the championship roster that already existed, combining them with the youngsters. And I think some of these young players are really exciting to watch. Like the Jordan Poole extension, so excited to see what he does in the next couple of years. James Wiseman, I think, has showed a lot of promise in preseason, and he's a player I'm really excited to watch. Hopefully stay fully healthy this season. I mean, he wasn't healthy his rookie season. He dealt with like all these minor and mild injuries on and off before he ended up with that knee injury. So I think that James Wiseman is going to be making some people eat their words, and I really hope he is for his sake. But I think that he's once again shown the athleticism and the promise of, what he could be and his potential in the NBA. So I'm really excited to watch the young core develop because I think given, the juncture that the Warriors are at, a lot of their older players are going to have to really be dialing it back in minutes. They're going to have to be really trying to watch how much they're playing a night. And this staff is going to have to be really trying to keep them fresh and making sure that they're not overdoing it. And that means the door is going to be wide open for some of these youngsters to excel and to really take ownership in a lot of games and to get a lot of minutes. And I think they're really fun to watch. And this young core could beat a lot of teams.
Yep. Wholeheartedly agree. I'm stoked. Kylen, I'll see you Friday. Thanks as always. Again, happy belated birthday to your husband. Dirty 30. He's all grown up. He's all grown up. All right, folks. Hall of Famer Rick Barry again joins me tomorrow, and I'm also uploading a special season preview show called NBA 1 through 5 with Wes Goldberg and Jackson Gatlin of Locked On Heat and Locked On Rockets. Stay tuned for that. Kylen, always a pleasure. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.